The snow fell thick outside the old apartment corridor when the knock came at exactly 7:30 p.m. Daniel Brooks froze mid-sentence, the pencil he'd been using to check his daughter's homework slipping from his fingers and clattering onto the worn linoleum floor. No one came looking for him at this hour, especially not in the dead of winter when the cold cut straight through to the bone. Through the peephole, he saw a woman in a black wool coat, standing ramrod straight, her eyes sharp and cold as ice itself. When he opened the door, the frigid air rushed in along with a voice so familiar it physically hurt. "Daniel, I've come to collect a debt you've owed me for 20 years. The woman standing in his doorway looked like she'd stepped out of a boardroom and into his life without warning. Her coat was tailored perfectly, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun, and there was something about the way she held herself confident, commanding, untouchable that made Daniel's cramped apartment feel even smaller than it was. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. 20 years had passed, but he'd know those eyes anywhere. "Evelyn?" His voice came out rougher than he intended, catching on the name he hadn't spoken aloud in 2 decades. Behind him, he heard the creak of a chair. Lily, his 12-year-old daughter, emerging from the kitchen with curious eyes. "Dad? Who is it?" Evelyn's gaze shifted past Daniel to the girl, and something flickered across her face too quick to read, too complex to name. Then the mask of composure slid back into place. "May I come in?" Evelyn asked, though it wasn't really a question. "We need to talk. It's about your promise." Daniel felt his chest tighten. His promise. The words he'd spoken on a summer night when they were both 18, standing on the football field behind their high school while fireworks exploded overhead. Words he'd meant with every fiber of his being, before life had torn them apart without explanation. "If you ever need me, I'll be there." He'd said it. He'd meant it, and now she was here, in the middle of winter, after 20 years of silence, to collect. "Lily, go finish your homework in your room," Daniel said quietly, his eyes never leaving Evelyn's face. His daughter hesitated, her sharp instincts picking up on the tension crackling in the air. But she was a good kid, perceptive, yes, but respectful of boundaries. She nodded slowly and retreated, casting one last curious glance at the stranger in the expensive coat. When the door to Lily's room clicked shut, Daniel stepped aside. "Come in." Evelyn entered his small world with the careful grace of someone navigating foreign territory. Her heels clicked against the floor as she took in the modest space, the second-hand furniture, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the photographs of Lily taped to the refrigerator. The contrast between them couldn't have been starker. Daniel shut the door against the cold and turned to face the woman who had once been his entire world. 20 years, he said softly. You disappeared without a word. Your family moved away. I called, I wrote letters, nothing, and now you show up talking about debts? Evelyn's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. I know, and I'm sorry, but I'm here now because I have no choice. She paused, and for just a moment, the ice in her eyes melted into something raw and desperate. My father is dying, Daniel, and before he goes, he needs to see you. The apartment felt smaller with Evelyn in it, as if her presence commanded more space than the physical room could provide. Daniel gestured toward the worn couch, the one he'd bought from a thrift store 6 years ago, when Lily complained the old one made her back hurt. Sit, please. Evelyn perched on the edge of the cushion, her posture impeccable even in this humble setting. She set her leather handbag beside her with deliberate care, and Daniel caught a glimpse of the designer logo, the kind of accessory that probably cost more than his monthly rent. He moved to the kitchen, his hands needing something to do. Coffee? It's not fancy, but it's hot. Thank you. As the coffee maker sputtered to life, Daniel studied her from across the counter. The girl he'd loved had grown into a woman of steel and polish. Everything about her screamed success, from the way she sat to the subtle scent of expensive perfume that had followed her inside. So, he said, keeping his voice neutral, CEO, huh? I saw an article about you a few years back. Chen Global Industries. Your father's company. My company now, Evelyn corrected softly. He stepped down 3 years ago when his health started failing. Daniel poured 2 mugs of coffee. Black for both, he remembered that about her at least. Some things didn't change. He carried them to the living room and handed her one, then settled into the armchair across from her. The old space heater in the corner hummed steadily, fighting against the draft seeping through the window frames. Outside, snow continued to fall in thick, lazy flakes, obscuring the streetlights and muffling the sounds of the city. I'm still trying to understand why you're here, Evelyn. Your father made it very clear 20 years ago that I wasn't good enough for his daughter. He had his people deliver the message in person, told me to stay away from you, that you were going to Oxford and I'd only hold you back. Evelyn flinched, the first real crack in her armor. He told you that? You didn't know? She shook her head slowly, her fingers tightening around the coffee mug. I thought you'd moved on. That you'd chosen not to follow me. My father said you'd agreed it was for the best. The revelation hung between them like a weight. All these years, both of them had been operating on lies. Before Daniel could respond, Lily's door cracked open. His daughter emerged, supposedly heading to the bathroom, but her eyes tracked to their guest with undisguised curiosity. Lily, this is Evelyn Chen. She's an old friend. Hi, Lily said, her voice cautious but polite. She had her mother's features soft and gentle, but her father's sharp observation skills. Daniel watched his daughter take in Evelyn's expensive clothing, her confident bearing, the way she seemed to occupy space so differently than anyone who usually visited their home. Hello, Lily. Evelyn's voice softened considerably. Your father has told me nothing about you, which means I have a lot of catching up to do. Lily smiled slightly at that, some of her wariness easing. He didn't mention you either. Must have been a really long time ago. 20 years. That's older than me. It is indeed. The exchange was brief, but Daniel saw something shift in Evelyn's expression, a warmth he hadn't seen since she'd arrived. Quickly shuddered, but definitely there. After Lily retreated to the bathroom, Evelyn turned back to Daniel. She seems like a wonderful girl. She is. She's everything. He set his mug down. Her mother passed away 4 years ago. Breast cancer. It's been just the 2 of us since then. I'm sorry. Thank you. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But you didn't come here to catch up on my life, Evelyn. You said your father is dying, and he wants to see me. Why? Evelyn took a long breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of confession. Because he wants to apologize for what he did to us, for the lies he told, and because, she paused, meeting his eyes directly, because I finally learned the truth about what happened 20 years ago, and I realized that the debt isn't yours to pay, it's his. But I'm the one who has to make it right. Daniel stood and walked to the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass against the darkness outside. Behind him, he could feel Evelyn's gaze on his back. Do you remember that night? He asked quietly. The 4th of July, right before you left for Oxford? Every detail, Evelyn replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He closed his eyes, and suddenly he was 18 again, sitting on the 50-yard line of an empty football field while fireworks exploded overhead. Evelyn had been wearing a white sundress, her hair loose around her shoulders, and she'd been crying because the next morning she was leaving for England, and neither of them knew when they'd see each other again. You said you were scared, Daniel continued. The memory so vivid it felt like yesterday. That you didn't know if you could handle being so far from home, from everything you knew. From me? And you took my face in your hands, Evelyn said from behind him, and you told me that no matter what happened, no matter where life took us, if I ever needed you, you'd be there. That I could count on you for anything. Daniel turned to face her. I meant it, Evelyn. Every word. I know you did. She set her coffee mug down with trembling hands. That's why what happened next destroyed me. What did happen? I need to understand. One day, we were making plans for how we'd manage the distance, talking about me visiting during winter break, and the next, nothing.